Apologies, Chair. Yeah, hopefully you're all up and running now. Thank you.
Right, apologies. I'm afraid we're going to run through the start of the meeting again because of a few technical difficulties. So please can I welcome everyone to this decision day. The time is 12:03. This decision day is being held under the regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April 2020 in response to the COVID-19 situation. I am Councillor Kelsey Lerney, Cabinet Member for Housing and Asset Management. There are a few housekeeping reminders to run through as there are new working practices in response to the regulations. First of all, can I ask everyone present that your microphones remain muted and your camera is turned off whilst you are not addressing the decision day, as this will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. Please can I also advise that the open parts of the decision day are being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website. In addition, a video recording of the open sections of the decision day will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel in due course. When speaking and referring to the agenda papers, please make sure that you reference the page or paragraph number. Thank you. Please note the duration of this virtual decision day is 2 hours and any business not conducted after this time may be deferred to an alternative date. Please can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to confirm the names of the officers present this morning.
Thank you, Councillor Lerney. In the St Giles room with me is Richard Botham, Strategic Director Services. From Housing we have Gilly Knight, Andrew Palmer and Dick Johnson on the call, and our legal representation is Catherine Knight. From Democratic Services we also have David Blakemore. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, item 1 on the agenda, are there any declarations of interest from councillors or officers present? Please use the hand up function to indicate and I will invite you to speak. Right, I think we have, so
nobody indicated.
So nobody's indicated a declaration. Item 2 is public participation. So no members of the public have registered to speak under public participation. We do have David Light and Monica Gill from TACT with us today. Would either of you like to speak on any of the agenda items? No, I have no response, so I assume not. Item 3, requests from invited councillors. I have received notification that one councillor, Councillor Horrell, wishes to speak on items 4, 5, 6, item 8. So, Councillor Horrell, you will be invited to speak at the appropriate point during the item for discussion. So that brings us on to the first business item of the day, DD 16. Outline business case for Southbrook Cottages, Mitchell Dever. The details of this are set out in report DD 16. Mr. Palmer, would you present the paper, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just to go through the report, this report seeks approval for the outline business case to construct 6 properties at Southbrook Cottages at Mitchell Dever. The report seeks explicit permission to submit a plan and obtain tenders to construct the scheme. By way of explanation, this site is currently a garage area, contains 6 garages. It was identified as a suitable site for housing within the development envelope of the village. During the concept stage, we were working with an architect in developing the concept for this scheme. It was identified as potentially suitable for a passive house scheme, and this particular method of construction goes a long way to meeting the council's stated ambition in terms of net zero carbon development. So we thought that this would be an appropriate scheme to try out, the passive house approach, to see how far and how much it would cost to achieve the net zero carbon. And so that's why this scheme is being brought forward at the moment for member consideration. We held a consultation event, a virtual consultation event with residents of Mitchell-Dever in August 2020. We also hand delivered to the immediate neighbours copies of the scheme, and where appropriate had direct conversations on the doorstep as we delivered the consultation papers to those households. The initial concerns expressed, there was quite a lot of concern around the design of the buildings, and we've taken that on board as far as we can and tried to meet some of those objections put forward. Also, there was an issue about put forward about car parking and any displaced car parking from the garage area. So we've had further consultations and done further work with our highways engineers to look at how we can provide at least 6 off-street car parking spaces. That looks like it will be a combination of lay-bys at the top of Southbrook Cottages and potentially individual driveways for some residents, because some of the front gardens are very, very large. If consent is granted today, we will move forward with the planning application immediately, hopefully to go out to tender in April, May 2021, with the start on site late summer. All that will be subject to a final business case, which will be approved by, will have to be approved by members. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Councillor Horrell, you wish to speak on this paper?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Councillor Lerney, and thank you to Andrew for presenting the paper. I must confess to be slightly torn this morning, in the sense that I think it was myself, as when I was the portfolio holder, identified the garages as a potential area for additional affordable housing in Mitchell-Dever, which I know the parish council is very supportive of. However, I would say, and I have reconfirmed this with the parish council in the last day or two, that they still have some concerns about this development. It's not that they don't need affordable housing and that they are anti-affordable housing in Mitchell-Dever. However, they are yet aware of the parking issue being resolved, which, if you recall and rightly have indicated this morning, was a matter of concern when the consultation took place. We have a car park at the end of the road on where the Southbrook Cottages would be. However, that is for the playing field, and I think there is great concern that that would become a spillover car park and not used for the purpose for which it's intended. And I'm not aware yet, Mr. Palmer, that the feedback regarding parking has gone back to the village. I think the other thing, Councillor Lerney, and it's a hard one, I think, for all of us, is that the passive house test, as it were, and the opportunity to learn is one that's been put forward for this development. But it does cause some concern, and the nature of the properties and the fact that they're only 1 and 2 bedroom, it does give concern again to the parish, and that actually this type of housing is maybe not appropriate for the village, particularly as you know, the village does not have a good public transport system. and that also exacerbates the parking issue. So as I say, I'm torn this morning because I'm always advocating additional housing, particularly in our villages, and half a dozen houses is exactly the strategy we should be taking. But you need to be aware that the residents of Micheldever are not completely content with this development, and I wouldn't like you to go ahead thinking that everything was settled. And obviously, if there's a planning permission going in without some of these elements being resolved, that may cause further concern for the parish council and for the residents. So I raise that with you in the spirit of hoping that we can try and rectify that if we're to proceed with this project. Thank you, Councillor Lerney.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. Mr. Palmer, can you respond to the issues, particularly around parking, that Councillor Horrell has raised?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think we've always realised that one of the biggest issues here for the community has been to make sure that we at least offset the loss of 6 garages with some additional car parking. Now, we haven't been back to the parish council and local members yet because, as I understand, there was only a meeting last week to try and finalise how many additional spaces we could create by putting some lay-bys within Southbrook Cottages close. So once we have that available to share, I think we should be able to produce more than 6 car parking, additional car parking spaces to offset the loss of the garages. But I need to see the final designs, as it were, and then we'll be able to share them with local residents and the parish council. So I think we're on the case, and we do recognise that it is a significant issue for the local community.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. I think that clearly Southbrook Cottages represents both a new approach to building for the council and for the local community, and I fully understand the concerns of the local community about the implications of both the type and form of property on the locality, as well as the parking issues that have been identified. This council has declared a climate emergency, and the need to take action is being recognised by all levels of government, including many parishes. Going forward, all our affordable housing, whether in urban or rural areas, will need to meet the net zero standard. Passive house is probably one of the best known ways of achieving this, although it's not the only one. But clearly all ways of doing this are going to lead to homes which look and work slightly differently. We do also recognise that there will need to be education of tenants about what's different about how these kind of homes operate. We've talked to Exeter City Council, who've been building in this way for some time, and I am reassured that actually once tenants are embedded, they will find it easier than running a conventional home. Given the need for appropriately qualified designers to be involved in the process, I agree that the best way forward is the traditional tender process, with the council controlling the design and planning side. Despite the extra costs involved, the scheme is still viable with rents below the local authority housing cap, and will provide healthy homes with low bills for our tenants. Clearly, we need to deal with issues such as the parking, but that's actually doesn't affect today's decision, but it will affect our approach going forward, particularly before we enter into the full planning process. I will therefore approve the decision as laid out on pages 5 to 6 of the paper without change.
Councillor Levin, thanks. All right. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So thank you for those who contributed to that item. We now move on to item 5, additional capital grant application Trinity Centre DD24. I have to say I'm very, while I can't say it's pleasing to have papers coming towards us asking for money, this is a project which has been very well supported in the local community. Mrs. Knight, would you like to give an introduction?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report provides information to support an additional and final capital grant contribution to Trinity Winchester of £25,000, and it will come from the HRA New Homes Unallocated Sites Capital Budget, and it will support the delivery, a very much needed delivery of 11 units of affordable social housing. A further contribution from the Council will complete Trinity's funding appeal to build the bespoke affordable social housing scheme for the most excluded rough sleepers. And we already have contractors on site starting to get the groundwork ready for that project. Trinity Winchester, as many of you will know, has supported homelessness and vulnerable people in Winchester since 1986, and it's also supported the council to deliver its homelessness duties over the years. It provides a place of safety for those rough sleeping and also offers us another range of both health support and housing advice support. Trinity Winchester has experience of running a homelessness day centre, which led to the organisation expanding its remit to offer vulnerable households a safe and bespoke affordable housing provision. And they're quite keen that they're able to move people through the day centre into a provision and do the whole holistic offer to those most socially excluded. It's based on a housing first model, so it's approached that the housing will come in as quickly as possible for individuals that are found through the outreach service, rough sleeping, or known to Trinity through other ways. And as I said, it will provide a really supportive service as well, with connections to a lot of county-based support agencies and statutory agencies, in the hope that this will help those that are taken from the streets to sustain their tenancies and best result, avoid them returning to homelessness. Trinity Winchester are committed to creating a design-led eco-building using sustainable sourcing materials. The project will be built through sustainable low-impact methods with a focus on the manufacturing and installation of structural insulated panels. And following a recent successful fundraising campaign, solar panels will be installed across the whole of the roof. So in summary, developing the Trinity Winchester housing offer is a vital next step to support the most excluded people in the greatest housing need, and delivers a much needed and affordable housing provision for the most vulnerable, and will, as I say, assist us in supporting our homelessness duties and also reaching our objectives within our preventing homelessness strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Horrell, you wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Councillor Lani. Yes, you accurately reflect that you and I have discussed this in the report, and I am wholeheartedly in favour of us helping Trinity. But not just because we're able to give them the money. I think because they are such excellent partners in our activity for homelessness, rough sleeping, and over the last few months I think the coordination across all of our various charities and voluntary agencies has been excellent, and this is a way that we can help them. Bringing those additional beds online for the more chaotic will be hugely beneficial to us as a council, and I think also Trinity have done an outstanding job at actually raising the funds themselves. They haven't come to us for the most enormous budget. They have actually raised the very significant majority of the funds required, and this is just finishing off that last element for them. I think it's fantastic that it will be coming online quickly and will actually benefit our overall provision in the city and consequently in the district. So I can only say well done to Trinity. Thank you to Gilly for recommending it, and I wholeheartedly support it. Councillor Lerner, I would just I want to use 2 seconds of my time here just to say I'm disappointed that you didn't recognise the residents' concerns about the prior paper, and I only hope that you will take that into consideration as we go forward, because otherwise that will be very difficult, I think, for the village. But I hope you will take that on board in the spirit in which it's meant. And thank you, Gilly, for, as I say, bringing the paper on Trinity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Horrell. As I said in my response earlier, I certainly do recognise the concerns of local people in Micheldever around the development. However, I didn't think that should stop us moving forward with this project, but there are aspects clearly that we do need to deal with before that goes before the planning committee. And I think that it is very important. Returning to the current item, I am pleased to be able to give Trinity the final funding they need to complete their project, in addition to our original £50,000 grant. The Housing First model, which gives those who find themselves homeless a roof over their heads, and after that the services and support they need to avoid being on the street again, is central to the City Council's current approach to homelessness, and it has indeed been vital during the pandemic. We do need to increase capacity within our local system, whether that's provision directly by the council or through our partners. I would like to thank Trinity for their sterling efforts in getting this project off the ground, on top of all the extra work they've done this year due to the pandemic. And it's great to see the building actually rising out of the ground at the moment. I'd also like to thank Councillor Horrell for her support in this, and I will sign off the recommendations as set out in the paper without change. Thank you very much. Right, thank you, Nancy. So that brings us on to our final paper for today, Property Acquisition, Stanmore, Winchester, DD 22. Councillor Horrell, you have asked to speak on the exempt paper as well as the main paper on this. Would you still like to do so?
Councillor Lurney, I think something I might want to say is probably more appropriate in exempt, but depending on how we go in the first discussion, I don't want to say something inappropriate in the open session. Thank you.
Right, that's fine. So we may need to move into exempt at the appropriate time. Right, Mr. Palmer, would you like to present this paper?
Yeah, very briefly, this paper seeks approval for the purchase of a 3-bedroom semi-detached house in Stanmore. I think the reason why we are recommending this in particular is that not only is it an additional unit of accommodation suitable for a family, it's also adjacent to a potential development site we may wish to bring forward at some stage in the future. So it enhances our access options to that particular site. We have consulted with the local members, and their comments are included in paragraph 10 of this report, where they were at pains to say that they supported the purchase of the property, but wish to make a comment that this particular area of Stanmore has seen significant development over the last 2 to 3 years, and asked us to not bring forward the site which is adjacent to this whilst other developments are happening in the area, which I think we're happy to support at the current stage. I don't think I've got a lot more to add, and again, happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you. Councillor Horrell, would you like to speak now, please?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Palmer, for bringing forward the paper. And I think wherever we can acquire properties, and they are in an area that already has a number of our own properties, that must be a good thing and an opportunity to use some of our right to buy money. So I think all of those things coalesce here. I think I just wanted to reiterate, and I wasn't convinced, if I might say, on 10.1 that we'd accurately reflected the strength of feeling, certainly from one of the local members, regarding future development. I think they feel that they've done their piece in the short term for affordable developments that we have organised. Obviously the Valley, Bailey Close, Queen's Gate, all of those have come forward in the recent past, but also it's an area that has had other developments, not funded by us obviously, but other developers who have been taking action in that area. And I think the general feeling of residents right now is we've done our bit for the moment, thank you, and that we'd like particularly the council to focus on other areas. And I see you smiling, but you'll know that I think they've been generous of spirit as a community in welcoming new properties, but they'd almost like a break. And I just wonder, even though we're acquiring this with potential long-term development aims, I would hate you to think that if that came forward in the very near term that it would be welcomed. It would not. And so I wanted to reiterate that point in paragraph 10 of the report, despite obviously supporting the opportunity to gain another family house that we can allocate within our own portfolio. Thank you, Councillor Lerney.
Right, thank you, Councillor Horrell. Yes, I am very well aware of the concerns from the local community about development, particularly as there are other significant sites in the area that may come forward for development, and I think we would like to have some more certainty about that. I would like to reassure you that pushing ahead with further development is not a priority for me or the team on the sites that this helps bring forward, or indeed locally in Stanmore. I think we certainly recognise that we've got considerable development underway which hasn't quite been completed, and we do need to let that all settle down before we look to bring forward any further development. I'm pleased to say we do have a significant pipeline of other prospective developments elsewhere, which are coming forward in the next couple of years, so we will be prioritising those. Unless something comes forward in the exempt, I am minded to approve what is not only a good acquisition for housing purposes generally, but as has been said, is a strategic acquisition as well. Councillor Horrell, would you like to move into exempt, or are you happy with what's been said?
Councillor Lerney, I'm content with your reassurances regarding the immediate term. Thank you very much, and well, short to medium term. Thank you very much, and thank you, Andrew.
Right, so thank you for that. In that case, we don't need to move into exempt session, and I will sign the recommendation as laid out in the paper. Right, thank you very much. Right, so that brings us to the end of our decisions today. I'd like to thank everyone that's attended and made contributions to the items under decision. And this concludes the formal business for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.